Hello and welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. In this video we're going to start looking at the theme decks from Judgment, which is the last set in Odyssey block. Kind of a weird thing in this set, Judgment, is that none of the theme decks contain black, but let's just dive in and start looking at them. So the first one we're looking at is Air Razers, which is blue and red. Which, yeah, is always fun. I like blue and red as a colour combination, so let's see how this one looks. So, deck list here. So we've got 19 creatures, 8 instants, 7 sorceries, 2 enchantments, 24 land, mana curve off to the side there. Let's just dive in, start taking a look. So we have a selection of blue flying creatures here. This is, I think, kind of like the core of the deck, really. It's quite a straightforward strategy, really. It's just kind of like blue flyers and red burn. It's a fairly simple strategies. It's you see it a lot in kind of like blue red decks at the time, just because it's what the two colors do really well, like evasive creatures and then killing the opponent's creatures with your own burn or dealing direct damage. Anyway, so we have 2 Aven Fishers. This is 2/2 flyer. When it dies, you draw a card. It's perfectly fine, I think. Aven Windreader is a 3/3 flyer for 5. Has an ability, I think it's 1 colour and 1 blue, like a clever boy. I have covered up the text, but a player reveals the top card of their library. It's fine, I guess. There's not too many effects in the deck that really care about, what the top card of a library is. Nothing you can really play around there, so it's fine. It's really just an expensive 3/3 flyer. Skywing Aven is a 2/1 flyer for 3, which is like not great stats. It has the ability where you can discard a card to return it back to your hand, which is alright. Okay, there is some synergy with that in this deck, as we'll see. One of the rares is Scalpalexis, which is really fun to say. So it's 5 mana for a 1/5 flyer, which is not wonderful, but its ability is whenever it deals combat damage to a player, they exile. I thought it was mill. It's not. It's exile the top 4 cards of their library, and if 2 or more of the cards exiled have the same name, you do it again. They exile the top 4 again, and if you just keep going if they keep hitting cards with the same name. Potentially very, very, very good. If you were playing these kind of theme decks though against each other, kind of out of the box, like you and your friend got one and just sat down, this wouldn't do so well, just because like the consistency of cards is not as high as it normally would be in, say, constructed decks where you would normally have 4 of everything. But there's always the potential. This hits like basic lands. I think it's okay. I think the effect is okay. I say it's just in a very expensive body. And being a 1/5 flyer. Yes, it's got flying, so it's evasive, but also, opponents usually going to have something to block that. You can just throw, saying like an Aven Fisher, for example, in front of the way. It only having 1 power means it's not too much of a threat to block. Yeah, I don't know. But also 5 toughness means it's actually a fairly decent blocker itself, but then it's not doing what it's meant to be doing. Yeah, I don't know. Kind of divided on Scalpalexis. And then what's a bit more interesting is Wonder, who is one of the incarnations. This is the set where incarnations first appeared. So Wonder is a bit of a star of Odyssey block. It goes along with all like the blue and green cards I've mentioned throughout the set, like Wild Mongrel and Arrogant Worm and all those kind of like madness cards. Really, I say, by the end of the block, blue and green had some really nice tools to make decks with. But Wonder is a 2/2 flyer, and if it's in your graveyard and you have an island, or your creatures have flying, that's just very good. Giving your whole board evasion is very, very good, and you can easily get into your graveyard. You've got say like Skywing Aven here as a discard outlet, or you just play it and just play really aggressive with it, force an opponent to block it maybe, and then it dies. I think Wonder is really, really good. So the other rare of the deck is World Gorger Dragon. Who is 6 mana, triple red, hurts it in this 2-color deck. So it's 6 mana for a 7/7, has flying and trample though. So when it enters the battlefield, you exile all your other permanents. And when he leaves play, you get all your stuff back. So I think there is like quite a few like kind of infinite loot combos with World Gorger Dragon. I think there's like one with Animate Dead. So you animate dead it from your graveyard, and it comes in, and then and then everything gets exiled. So then there's no longer the animate dead, so the World Gorger Dragon dies, and it's all this kind of stuff. Lots of potential chicanery with it. Kind of a weird rare, I feel, to put in. It is this very big all or nothing thing, but if it's going to win you the game, I suppose slapping that down for 6 mana and just like, oh, I've got a 7/7 flying trample, which would have been really hard to deal with at the time. Not a lot of things in the air would have been able to block that properly. So that's obviously to close out the game. It's okay. It's okay. I think. I mean, I think. Well, it's okay in this deck. I think like it's obviously really good in terms of like ridiculous combo potential in constructed formats and whatever. Also interesting note on this, the artist on this, Wayne England. This art is almost identical to Stone Tongue Basilisk, which is a rare we saw back in one of the Odyssey decks. Yeah, I'm almost convinced that I don't know, maybe it's a tight deadline or something, so he just kind of like took the Stone Tongue art and modified this a little bit. If you look at them side by side, they are almost completely identical. Yeah, anyway, that's just a little bit of trivia there. So moving on, so we have 2 Barbarian Bullies, 3 mana for a 2/2. Discard a card at random from your hand. Blag, hate, random discard. It gets +2/+2 turn to turn, unless a player has Barbarian Bully deal 4 damage to him or her. Activate this ability only once a turn. So there's a lot going on here, which is kind of garbage. So 3 mana for a 2/2, whatever. That's like just Grey Ogre stats. That's that's the norm at the time. So a random discard is obviously horrible. It's to give it +2/+2, making it a 4/4. Unless an opponent has it deal 4 damage to him or her. Most of the time, like these kind of red cards where it gives in this set where it gives like your opponent a choice in how your spells and abilities work are bad. The fact this has got random discard is bad. 100% of the time, they're better just letting the Barbarian Bully get +2/+2. Because like I don't know, say you're attacking with it. Like, oh, I'm gonna give this buff, like give it +2/+2. Oh, unless the opponent's gonna want to take 4 damage. Well, they're not want to take 4 damage because they could just block the Barbarian Bully or only take 4, whereas if they take the 4 damage from the Bully and then 2 damage from being unblocked, that's 6 in total. The only reason I could see why someone would want to take 4 damage instead of letting it get the power toughness boost is, say if this is blocking or being blocked by a creature they want to keep alive. And even then you've lost the Barbarian Bully and you've for only kind of like 4 damage. I just it's too conditional, too many hoops to jump through. I just don't think it's very good. But I could be completely wrong with that. I think just having random discard is just really horrible. And I hate that so many red cards have it at this sort of time of the game. We have 2 Barbarian Lunatics, 3 mana for a 2/1, 2 cards in red, sacrifice them, does 2 damage to a creature. I think this showed up in one of the Odyssey blocks, Odyssey theme decks. This is just a card, I think, where like some of the numbers are just off by 1. Like if that ability was like 1 less, or he was a 2/2, or he was only 2 mana to cast. I don't know. Yeah, just in some ways he's just always a little expensive in sort of every way, I suppose. And then a single Chain Flinger. 4 mana for a 2/2, 1 card, some red, 1 red tap, does 1 damage to a creature player. If you have Threshold, which is 7 cards in your graveyard, then he can do 2 damage instead, which is really good. Like hitting Threshold, having then a reliable 2 indirect damage that you can do. Even at 3 mana though, that's fine. I mean, that's essentially having always like a shock on hand. I think Chain Flinger is okay. And then last few creatures here. So we have 2 Dwarven Scorchers. So it's 1 mana for a 1/1. Again, it's one of these red creatures with an ability that your opponent decides how it works. So sacrifice Dwarven Scorcher. He does 1 damage to target creature unless that creature's controller has the Scorcher deal 2 damage to him or her. So, okay, say your opponent has like a X1 that they really need. You're like, aha, I'll use my Dwarven Scorcher to kill it. They're like going, well, I need this X1. It's really integral to my strategy. I'll just take 2. Or you just kill an X1. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I mean, like, I guess you can make an argument like there'd be some like really like absolute perfect board state where this is it would genuinely be a tough choice for an opponent to make, but yeah, I just don't think it's very good. 2 Wormfang Turtles, so it's 3 mana for a 2/4. When it comes into play, remove a land you control from the game. When he leaves play, return the remove land. So this is like kind of the Nightmares from Torment, except it affects you, which I don't know if that's like to tie into the narrative. So the whole idea of Judgment is that, so we had Torment, the set before this, where black was meant to be really strong and green and white were really weak, because that's because those are black's enemies. But now we have Judgment, where green and white are meant to be really strong, so now black and blue and red, I guess, aren't as strong. I don't know. Yeah, I just don't think it's very good. You're essentially stone raining yourself just to get a 2/4 with like no evasive abilities. Yep, not great. And then 2 Hapless Researchers, 1 blue for a 1/1. Sacrifice it, draw a card, then discard a card. That's fine, just for a loot ability on a 1/1. But it's fine. And then a few red burn spells, so 2 Shower of Coals, 5 mana for a sorcery that does 2 damage to up to 3 target creatures or players. If your threshold does 4 damage to each of those creatures or players instead. That's okay. I think that's pretty good. Even with that threshold, I think that's okay. The fact that it can potentially kill off 3 things. You can't double dip on this, so you can't target the same creature or player more than once, which is a shame. But the fact that it's worded that it can be up to, so if you absolutely need to, if there aren't 3 targets, you can do it at least and hit maybe only 2 or 1 target. And at threshold, that's really good. That's doing 4 damage to up to 3 things is really, really strong. 2 Swelters, which is a sorcery for 4 mana. It does 2 damage to exactly 2 target creatures. So if there's only 1 creature out, you can't do it. Yeah, just not very good. Lava Dart is okay though. This is 3 of those. So it's 1 red. Does 1 damage to target creature player, and you can flash it back by sacrificing a mountain. I think this is a popular card in like Storm decks, just because you can basically do your Storm count by 2 just for a single red mana and a single card. So yeah, Lava Dart's okay, I think. 2 Fiery Tempers, it's 3 mana to do 3 damage to target creature player, but it has Madness for 1 red, which means if you discard it, you can still play it by paying its Madness cost, which is only a single red, so it's essentially Lightning Bolt at that point. Yeah, I think Fiery Temper's perfectly fine. As I said, you've got some discard outlets here, I guess, that make it okay. Like you could, it's going back to the Barbarian Bully, you could kind of manipulate it so you only have Fiery Temper in your hand, so you discard it. Well, you get to cast it, but yeah. And then a single Violent Eruption, which is 1 and 3 red, which again is kind of painful in a 2-color deck. But it's an instant that does 4 damage, divided you choose amongst any number of target creatures or players, and then again it has Madness for 1 cast and 2 red. So yeah, I think that's fine. It's essentially Pyrotechnics. Obviously that triple red is pretty painful, but the fact it can be cast for Madness is okay, and it being an instant actually matters as well a little, I think. And then just tie off here with a few blue spells. So we have 2 Flash of Insight, which is X1 blue. Instant. Look at the top X cards of your library, put 1 of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library. Which is okay. You can kind of like dig to find the 1 card you need, I suppose. You can flash it back by paying 1 card in blue and removing X blue cards in your graveyard from the game. But you can't remove Flash of Insight, depends on flashback cost. I think this is okay, I guess. Kind of like you dig for X, you find the card you really need. Fine, I guess. 2 Chaining Eddies, it's 4 mana sorcery, return a creature and a land to owner's hand. That's okay. I think bouncing 2 things with 1 card is generally pretty good. yeah, obviously that it's it's an expensive sorcery which kind of plays against it, but it essentially sets an opponent back a whole turn because you're bouncing a land and potentially a creature they played with that land. So single concentrate, it's just draw 3 cards. Yep, it's fine. I think that's finely costed for what it does. And then 2 compulsions. I really like compulsion. Really happy it's in this deck actually. It's an enchantment that essentially gives all the cards in your hand cycling, which goes really well with all the madness cards you've got. Goes really well with wonder. You can discard wonder and then draw a card, and then your whole board has flying. Yeah, and 2 of those, which is really nice to see. So it's like a little more consistent in drawing it. So yeah, compulsion's really really good. So, what could have been? So, I think the selection of cards in here is okay. It could be obviously a little better. I think anger would have been good in here to have the other, like the red incarnation, give all your stuff haste, make it a bit more aggressive. That would have been fine. I think browbeat could have been fun here as well. Out of all the red Punisher spells, this one is my favorite just because I think it's fairly costed for both of the effects. Basically, unless an opponent chooses to take 5 damage, you get to draw 3 cards, which I think is, I think 3 mana for either of those effects is okay. Again, the downside is they get to choose exactly. So if you really need the 3 cards, then you should be like, well, I'll just take 5 damage. Yeah, I don't know, or yeah. But I think browbeat's okay. Fledgling Dragon, I think, could have been in here instead of World Gorger Dragon, just because it's a bit more kind of straightforward as a card. 4 mana for a 2/2 flyer. You have Threshold. It basically becomes Shivan Dragon, which is okay. And Wormfang Drink. I would have liked to see this instead of the Wormfang Turtle. So it's 3 mana for a 3/4 flyer, which plays the theme of kind of having flying evasive creatures. But when it comes in, you have to exile a creature you control, and then when it leaves play, you get the exiled creature back. Yeah, I just think that's a bit better than Turtle, just because like being 3/4 in the air is fairly scary, and yeah, I think like exiling a creature you control is potentially better than exiling a land. At least then that's not affecting like your kind of mana curve or like how your turns progress. I don't know. That's just what I think. But enough about what I think. What did you think of this deck after seeing the deck list? I think it's okay. It's just blue flies and red burn. I think it's perfectly serviceable. Some kind of duff cards in here. Those red kind of like tough choice cards, I guess you could call them. But yeah, overall I think it's okay. But what did you think? If you had this deck, please let me know. Like if you played it and you made changes to it, what you think about it after seeing the deck list. I really like to know. I'm really interested. But yeah, I will be back next time. I will be looking at the next deck from the Judgment set. But until then, thank you for watching and listening, and have a great day.